What's up, everybody? I'm going to hop on here and I wanted to make a quick video, or as quick as I can, on how to chart support and resistance as well as supply and demand levels. There's a few members here that aren't part of the Invest to Trade Discord where we've all kind of learned how to do that. So I wanted to do a quick overview on how to look for them and how to chart them. So kind of hopefully help us all out and just get better. So we'll do support and resistance first. From reading all the books and stuff, I'm sure you've all heard about support and resistance. These are areas where price either tends to turn around or consolidate, things like that. And these are mostly the areas that we're looking for to take trades, because this is where the buyers and sellers step in and either reject the price or step in and then they come through and push through that level. So these are the areas that we want to trade. So lots of people do it on the candle charts. I prefer to make it a little bit easier on myself, and I use a line chart. So what I like to do is go to the line chart, and I like to go, since I mostly trade momentum during the day, I don't really swing anything overnight. I look for kind of smaller time frames. So I go down to like the 2 hour or even the 1 hour is good. Either one will work. We'll just go with the 2 hour for now. So bring up your line chart and you're going to see areas where prices turned around a lot. So like here you can see price went up, fell, came back to the same area, fell again, third time test. So what you're looking for when you're charting these, we're going to do the horizontal lines here. You're looking for areas where price has rejected or broken through and then came back and tested that area as well. So right off the bat, looking at this chart, this is a pretty important level. And you can see if you even scroll back more, it did it back here as well. So this is a really key level here. And one thing to note when you're putting in support and resistance, it's not going to be perfect. You know, price overshoots these lines all the time, but it's a general area. So if I was going to put it here, I would probably put something kind of like this. You know, we tested here, here. I mean, there's just a ton. We overshot it here a little bit, but overall, I'd say that's a pretty good area. There's also times where I'll go back to the candles and kind of maybe look and see where the best area is. But I'd say that's decent. You don't have to do that, but something that helps if you're not too sure on where to put it. So you kind of just do that. Maybe we can work our way from the bottom to the top. Looking here, we see price bounced here and then rejected here, so I'd probably put it there. You can see we bounced here, got close there, rejected here, and yeah, you just kind of run through the charts like that, looking for areas where price has tested, broke through, tested again. Like here's a good area where we broke through, came back, touched it, and then shot off. So this is what I would do. Just go through, looking for areas. We're kind of down at one right here where we tested here. And then this one's a little tricky. Looks like we've overshot. I would probably put one, without looking past, you know, in the past, I'd probably put one there as well. And so, let's say right about here's good. And so you can see a little bit better once you start putting these lines in how well the support and resistance work. You know, we break through eventually, come back and bounce off it. And remember, it's not perfect as long as you're close, because the line chart doesn't take into account wicks either. This only plots the candle closes. So even though like the close, like on this area right here, closed above it, there's a wick that's down under it that almost touches this bottom one. But overall, it charts the closes. And so I think that's a little better, gives you a little better area to look at. We'll go back a little bit more. Let's say one right there. And then here, looks like there's probably one on the top side. It's a little tricky. I'll probably go right there. And I'm trying to see if there's one in here. I might put one right there where we tested, you know, something like that. So those are going to be your major support and resistance areas. And so when you go back to the candles, these are the areas that you're going to want to trade. So if you're not trading supply and demand, these areas that we just marked are the areas that you're going to want to look for trades on. So even though on, say, like the daily time frame, it looks kind of busy, once you go down to maybe the 15-minute or kind of the ones that you trade more, maybe even the 5-minute, price will respect these really well, and you'll be able to catch some really good trades. You can see we wicked here, huge drop. I mean, we broke through this, but came down here, and then it respected it on the retest. So if you look for trades and only take trades at these levels, you're going to save yourself a lot of losses, and your profits are going to be a lot better, because when you're taking trades down here in the middle of the range, you don't know where it's going to go. That this could go up, down, anything. When you see things that break and then retest, those are like the higher quality trades. So I hope that helps a little bit. I know that was pretty quick, but support and resistance is pretty easy to chart. So one more time, set it to the 1 hour, 2 hour. I mean, if you swing trade, maybe even the 4 hour, because you're looking for like those bigger moves, but I'd like the 1 or 2 hour, and then you just go through, kind of see where prices hit, and just put a line and then move them around. So I hope that helps with support and resistance. I'm going to take those off now, and we'll get into supply and demand. This one's going to be a little bit more in-depth, just because it takes a little bit more time to see them. But basically what supply and demand is we're using the chart as basically a footprint for where the big money places their orders. So if you backtest this and kind of look on Bookmap as well, Bookmap, if you don't know what it is, it's where you can see all of the orders that are placed in the market. So if like an institution has a big buy around, say, $4,000 and they put it there, you'll be able to see that big buy that they have lined up and ready to get filled or to get hit. And so what supply and demand does is you basically use these charts, and based on the look of the chart, you can tell where the big money puts their orders. And so the whole idea of this is to get in where the big money places their orders, and you ride the trade with them, because they're the ones that move the market. So you want to be trading with them. Typically, retail doesn't use supply and demand trading. So typically, they trade against the big money, and that's why they lose a bunch. So what we want to do is trade with the big money, the smart money, and catch the profits that they are also taking as well. So for supply zones, the whole idea is to find an area where a big move starts. So say like here, like this is an area where this big drop started in this area, right? This big drop started in this area. This drop started up here. So you're basically looking for levels where big moves first start. That's kind of the whole idea of it. And what you want to do is you start, say, on the weekly time frame. You're looking for the areas where the big moves start. And you're going to cycle down through the weekly, the daily, 8 hour, 4 hour, 3 hour. I'm only going to go down to the hourly. We're just going to chart these main zones. But you can even go down to like the 30-minute, 45-minute, all those smaller ones. Those tend to work better intraday. So say like a 30-minute zone formed in the first hour of the market. Lots of times price will come back and test that zone on the same day, and those usually make for really high quality trades, or scalps even. So, but we're going to chart just the bigger time frames. Usually the stronger the reaction where the move starts, the stronger the zone is. So if a move happens and this drops really hard, kind of like here, like this zone is going to be very strong. And so by strong, I mean there's a lot of sell orders here from the big money, and if price comes back up here, those will get filled, and price will most likely, or more than likely, fall back down. That's the whole gist. So now we kind of know what supply is, kind of just where all the big money places their orders to sell. How do we chart it? So I had said we look for areas where the big moves start. Okay, easy enough. You can see where big moves first start. We drop strongly, very easy. But how do you chart it? So what we're looking for, once we start on the higher time frames first, and then we cycle down through the lower ones, we're looking for the first small green candle that precedes a big drop red candle. And so that is going to be the start of the zone, or where we start drawing the zone. So if I'm looking here, where do we see a small green candle followed by a big red candle? I'm only seeing one area, and it is right here. So what I would do is, for a supply zone, you start from the bottom of the green and you take it to either the top of the green wick or the top of the red wick, whichever is taller. So since the red wick is taller, we go to the very top of it. And so this is going to be a weekly supply zone. Now, I had said that we're looking for a small green candle followed by a big red. This red isn't huge, but it is strong. And by strong, I mean it starts up here and comes all the way down here, and there's not really a wick at the bottom. So that's kind of what we're looking for. We're looking for the small body green candle followed by a red candle that closes very strongly. Like this is a very strong candle. There's no wicks on the top or bottom. It is just straight down. So that is a strong candle. The reason I wouldn't mark this as a zone is because, yes, this is a small green, but this drop candle afterwards is small. It's not strong. If, say, this red candle was after this small green one, that would be a perfect zone to draw. So I hope that makes sense. So I don't see any other zones here. And one other thing to note, you do not look at price action that has been already pushed through. So say like we have say you had a zone, like this would be a zone, technically. But since price broke through it, this zone is not valid anymore. All the orders that were here got filled. So this doesn't count. So you're only looking for places on the chart that price has not pushed through. So all of this area is valid here. Let's see if I can draw a little ellipse maybe. All of this is valid. This is not valid, this area right here, because we already pushed through it. So you want only fresh areas on the chart that have not been touched. So this zone is valid because price has not come through and pushed through this zone. So this zone up here, still valid. If price ever came back up here, we would be looking to short at this area if the price action told us to. So we would be looking for areas here, areas here. We would not be looking for a supply zone down here because price pushed through it. So we start on the weekly. I only see one zone. And another thing to note is supply zones are always above price. So if this is the last price right here, anything above it is going to be a supply zone. Anything below is going to be a demand zone. So we'll just do the supply for now. So there's the weekly. There are no other green candles, small green candles followed by big red candles, so we'll go down a time frame. Now we go to the daily. So this is the daily chart. Do we see any small green candles followed by large red candles? I see one here, small green. We start at the bottom of the body and go to the wick that is the highest. And so this wick is higher on the red candle right here, so we draw to the top. So that is a zone. I would say this zone is valid. It's been tested multiple times, but it hasn't broken. So if price comes up and tests a zone, it does make the zone weaker, but it doesn't invalidate it. And so when you also see something like this where green shoots up and red shoots down, there's probably going to be a zone up here, but since this green candle is so large, you'd have to go down maybe like a time frame or two to actually find the zone that's in this area. But since this daily is a small body followed by the big red, and then we came back and tested it twice, I'm just going to leave this as our daily zone that has not broken through. It has held strong. There are lots of sellers there holding price down when we come back up here. And then going back a little further, I do see a zone right here. And so this zone overlaps the weekly zone slightly. And so you'll notice this happens a lot where new supply forms at old ones as well. And so those are valid and you want to draw those in. Lots of times for something like this, I wouldn't draw two boxes just because it starts looking, there's just boxes that overlap. But I would put a green line where this one is, where the weekly started, right? Since it's higher. And I would move this zone to start at this candle. So I know that the zone starts here, but there's another zone within this box that also starts just slightly higher. So that's how I would do it. There's some people that also put a box on top of a box. That's fine too. It's just all kind of personal preference at that point. And then up here, in this area, we don't have anything yet. There's no small body green candle followed by a large red, but we do see these large red come out of here. So that there's going to be something here. We just need to go down a time frame or two to get to it. We'll go to the 690 minute. This one was actually told to me by Ryan from the group. It actually splits the future day perfectly in half. So just another time frame to add if you want. And here we have a perfect candle for a supply zone right there. Beautiful. We'll go up here. Notice that this 690 is also inside of this daily. So again, I would keep the daily as it is, but I would put a line where that 690 starts. So I know that we can reject here where there is another smaller zone, and this is a pretty strong one because this drop is great. There is another zone at 4,467, and so I would mark that as well. And going back, there is one here you can see. You can go through and mark that. Excuse me. So I'd say that is the supply zones for the 690. We'll go to the 8 hour. So here's a perfect one again. So this 8 hour starts a little bit under the 690 minute that we charted before. So again, I would leave the 690 and draw a line where it's at. But I would move this overall zone, since they're both part of the same zone, one just started a little bit sooner than the other, I would mark this here and move and pull that down to here. Now another thing to note, this whole area is kind of a zone. It's hard to see, but you can see that this is a small green followed by a big red drop that came back and actually got tested the next day. So this is a zone too. So another thing, I would move this all the way up to here. And I would mark again, this is where another zone starts. And again, if you look here to the left, small green followed by big red, this is another zone. So I would mark that there, and I would pull this all the way to the top of this area. We're probably going to end up pulling it all the way up here, but for now, that's what I would mark. So this is one big zone with multiple zones that are inside of it. And I would expect this to reject price pretty well if we come back up. Going back a little bit, here's another small green followed by big red. This one's basically the same area, so I'm just going to keep this line where it is. And this line is pretty damn close to this one. I'm not going to stack too many lines on each other because this isn't really like a perfect science or anything. Just if price comes in this area, I would look for a rejection. Again, here's an 8-hour zone. A lot smaller, but still valid. And let's see. I think that's about it. There isn't, looks like an 8-hour here that's slightly under this one. Maybe I'd bring this down. You know, so if price hits here, it kind of comes up in this area, then we know. So that's 8-hour. We'll go to the 4. I don't see anything really to add here. We already have some zones marked out that are valid. We do have this zone right here. So this is another zone. But it's basically part of this zone. They're all stacked on top of each other. So again, I'm not going to draw that. I'm going to put a line right here. And I'm going to pull this all the way to the top. So that is a very big zone right there. Go back a little bit above price. So this one looks like it's a zone, right? But it's not valid. Why? Because we busted through it. So this was the zone, just this little area, but price already broke above it, so we would not mark that. We're only marking zones that have not been broken through. Again, here's a 4-hour. You could chart if you wanted. Now this zone, so we have a zone here, right? But this zone is a little bit bigger. I'm going to pull this down. There we go. And that's that. We'll go through the 3, 2, and the 1 hour. So there's a 3-hour. I don't see anything here. I do see one right here. Now on something like this, if it's just these little small candles, just kind of chopping around prior to a big drop, say that this red wick came up here a little bit, I would include that whole thing because this is basically a whole zone. Even though it's a little bit higher than this candle and it's not part of the basing candle, is what we call these as the base drop, I would still pull this all the way to include the top of that. And that's all I see. Go to the 2-hour. Small green followed by a big red. Not seeing a lot. Again, this was a good zone, but we ripped right through it. And that's another thing to note too, is these zones don't always hold. Like, just because price comes in this zone doesn't mean we have to fall back down. We can definitely rip right through these zones like they aren't there. But what supply and demand does, it gives you an area to look for a trade. So that's kind of what we're doing. We're seeing where the big money puts their orders, and we're trading with them. All right, I don't see anything on the 2, and now we'll go to the 1. Here's a nice candle. So this is kind of an exception to the rule. So the rule would say you go from here to there. But since we were just consolidating overnight in this very tight range, I would say this is kind of a zone. I mean, the drop isn't very big, but what I would do is I would draw a line here, and I would extend this to include this whole range. This one is kind of also a zone. I don't think I'm going to mark it. It's very small. The drop isn't. It's strong, but the follow through is not. So the strongest zones will have follow through to them. So like this, you see you got the small green followed by big red, and then we kept dropping. That's strong. When we have a small green followed by big red, and then it kind of pops back up and then kind of chops around, it's not the strongest of zones. So you only want to really mark the strongest ones because those are going to give you the best trades. So we're at the 1 hour. Let's zoom in a little bit. We got this all marked. I don't really see anything else. You got a little area up here. I mean, you could mark it if you want. Some nice follow through on it. That's the top of the range of the zone. I see one here, but I don't know if this has been broken through. So let me see. So that's a zone. Okay. I was thinking that this price had broken through here, but it did not. But that is a valid zone. And you can see here how well price respected this zone. So this is the start of the zone. About 4 days later, 3 days later, we ticked it, and then we dropped. So those are the best trades that you'll take, is where the zone gets hit and price just turns around right away. Those are the strongest reactions that you're looking for. But even if price came up here, kind of chilled out, hung around, and then dropped, it's still valid. But these are the best types of trades where you have a strong zone, you come, you touch it, and just the seller step in right away and drop it. How far do we drop? 45.20 to 44.70. So that's a 50-point move in a single day. That's awesome. So that would be all the supply zones on ES that I currently have. This is kind of what your chart would look like. Now let's do demand zones here. This is going to be just the opposite of supply. I just realized I made all of these green. It doesn't matter what color they are, but typically I mark these supply zones as red actually, and the demand zones as green. Green for bounce, red for a rejection. But since I already fucked that up, we're going to go with the opposite and do red. So for a demand zone, we are looking for a small red candle followed by a big green push candle. Now we're on the weekly. Again, we see this area right here. This looks like a great zone, and it probably worked out well. But I'm going to make this red. You can see that price already broke through it, right? We already came down, broke through it. There is nothing. So this zone is no longer valid. And you'll notice that we made supply zones in the old demand zones. That's one thing to take note of, is lots of times when a zone breaks, the opposite zone will form in its place. So this is the weekly. We don't have a, so here's another thing to look for too. So we're looking for fresh places where price has not broken through. So all of this area right here has been broken through. Price is down here at 3,900. We're already down under this 4,000 level, 4,300 level. So the zones in here are not valid. We're only looking for zones that are under price right now, like right here, where we haven't touched. Or in this area down on these wicks, there's definitely going to be a zone down here because that's where the price turned around. We'll just have to go to the smaller time frames to find it. But you would not look for zones in this area at all. You would look for anything under this white line. This is where the price is at now. So you're looking for the demand zones under here. Okay? So weekly, I don't see a lot of small red followed by big green. I mean, you see this kind of red hammer here, but the green afterwards is pretty small. We're looking for stronger moves than that. So on the weekly, I don't have a lot of demand zones down here. This one was all right. I think the red was a little bit too big. I would rather have like a smaller body, but the push out of this zone is great. So nothing there. Let's go with the daily. So the daily, we do have a small red body candle here. The push was not, I mean, it was green. It didn't have a lot of wicks, but we didn't really follow through a lot. So I'm going to look for a zone down here in this wick on a smaller time frame. I'm not going to mark this as a daily zone just yet. So since we got nothing there, we're going to have to scroll all the way back to where we're under price right now. So I don't see any small red followed by a big green. I do see this one right here, but again, this was broken through. So this is not valid. We only want the fresh areas, so this area right here, or up to here at least, where we haven't touched. So I don't see any daily strong zones here. So we'll go to the 690 minute. Not seeing any small red. We'll go scroll back to down here under price. Ah, there we go. This is a great zone. This is perfect. So this is another one where I would extend the zone to the wick of the previous candle. So you draw it from the top of the red candle body. You don't put the wick in it, and you draw it all the way down to the wick, usually of either the green push or this red, but since this area also rejected down here, I would just include that as the whole zone, personally. You don't have to. You can definitely draw it up to there, but there is a chance where this zone could break, maybe down just a few points under it to this wick area and bounce. So I like to include it all, and then if price breaks through that, then you know the zone is fully broken. So that is a great zone right there. I don't see anything else under price. This is our price line right here, 39.08. So that's the first one I'm going to mark. You can go back way down here, but I don't see a lot. I see this right here. I would say this is a decent zone. But other than that, I'm not going to go any lower than that. That's 3,200. I don't think we'll even touch that anytime soon, but I could be wrong. So we'll go down to the 8 hour. I'm not going to mark this zone right here. This was a zone, but we broke through it. I don't see anything else down here. And then there's another thing to note. When you see the big wick like this, obviously lots of buyers came in as price pushed down here. So there's going to be a zone down here, but you'll just have to go to the smaller time frames to find it. So let's scroll back. We're on the 8 hour now. I would say this is a decent zone right here. And this may be where price rejected before, but that's decent. I would mark that. This is part of this zone, broke through down here with the wicks, so this one's valid. And then I don't see any small red followed by big green, so we're going to keep it right there. Let's go to the current price action, see if this zone actually held up. Oh, we broke it. So this zone is not valid. See, this wick broke through this zone, so I would invalidate this. I would say this is not a zone. So we'll stick with this one, see what else we get. Go down to the 4 hour. Small red followed by big green. I don't see anything. Scroll back. This is the worst part. I would say this looks decent. I don't know if price broke through there yet, but we'll mark it and see what we get. There is a push here. So this zone isn't terrible. Here's a small red followed by a bigger green. But this wick right here is not ideal. Ideally, you want the full body candle. So there's probably something on a smaller time frame, so I'm going to leave this out for now. But this is decent. We'll see if price actually held that. Nope. We broke through. See, this is the zone that I marked. And the wick, we wicked through it, so it is not valid. So I will go and turn this off. All right, I got nothing yet, so let's go to the 3 hour. Aha, finally. So here's a great zone. That's going to be the next zone that this price probably tests. So more than likely, we're not going to just fall straight through this. This was a very strong push here. So buyers really stepped in around this, 3,800 to 3,850 area. So I would expect at least somewhat of a bounce prior to us breaking through. But this is definitely a zone that I'm going to be watching in the next week or two to get a reaction out of. So we got a nice zone there. Let's go to the previous price over here, see if there's anything else. Here we go. So from that previous candle, remember it had a wick on top? We went down just a single hour time frame, and now this looks amazing. Looks great. Small body red with a nice wick underneath, and then a big push. And you can see literally that same day we came back, touched it, and then price just took off. Are you guys seeing what I'm seeing here too? This isn't the smallest red candle, but this big green candle afterwards looks very nice. So I'm seeing like these zones stacked here. So you got a zone above it, zone below it, and then I would call this a zone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line where this zone starts, make it red, and I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to draw a zone where this starts, and I'm going to extend this all the way down. So this is kind of the same thing with the supply zones we had previously where they were stacked. So this is going to be a pretty strong area, I think. So let's go back to the current price action. And so you can see that this actually overlaps. So this is the zone that we just drew. And you can see, this was months ahead of time. So this zone formed back in March of 2021. And we didn't hit it and test it until May of 2022, and it still bounced. So as you can see, these zones are still valid, even a year after they form. So what I would do here, I'm going to, this is kind of tricky. You could move this up. I would maybe mark this zone that we have from back here. This is the start of this zone. So, but this is the start of another zone that is stacked on top of this one. So I think I'm going to do it like that, where this zone starts here, bounce here, but we have other zones that are stacked underneath, and here's the starting points of each of them. So like I said earlier, this is definitely going to be a hard zone to get through. Overall, I think we will break through it just because of the fundamentals that are going on right now with inflation and just all the bad shit that's happening. But it's probably going to be tough. So I would look for bounces at all of these areas. We'll go down to the 2 hour. I don't think we're going to find a lot more. So this one, let's see. This is a small red, but the green afterward kind of sucks. This one's decent, but we broke through it already. And then down here, these are just all zones stacked. I'm not going to go look. I'll go look. We'll see if there's any 2 hour zones in this area, but we got a lot of stacked zones here, so here's a good one. This is a 2 hour. This is a little better than that 3 hour, I think, because the 3 hour red body started here and we pushed up, I think, into here. This red body is a lot smaller, and then this green candle is a perfect strong candle with almost no wick, top or bottom. So I would go. So I would mark that. We'll go to the 1 hour. This is going to be my last zone that I draw. I don't see anything here. And we'll go back to March 2021. See what we got. Now, I didn't go back any lower. There are going to be zones down here, where price bounced, but I'm just kind of giving you the gist. So I would definitely look at these areas too for zones. but we're going to just look at these for now. And I don't see any more places to mark. All right, there you have it. So those are our supply and demand zones. Go back to the daily here. So we're approaching a very strong demand area, and we got supply above. So we'll see how the week plays out, but that is how to draw supply and demand, as well as support and resistance. So if you're being strict with your rules and stuff, and you'd only want to play reactions at these zones, and then use these support and resistance for possible take profit areas or stop losses, things like that. But you can play either one. These just help give you areas of interest to enter. So yeah, I hope that helps everybody. That's kind of the gist of it. It's pretty easy and simple. As you can see, we kind of ran through this in like 40 minutes. So it's not hard to draw these zones. Just takes a little bit of an eye, kind of getting used to spotting them. But once you do, they're very easy to spot. Trying to think anything else that I can tell you guys. We got support, resistance, supply, demand. Yeah. Like I said, you can do like the 30-minute zones. Those work well in the middle of the day. This one almost hit on Friday, but it didn't quite. That would have been a nice zone to take a short off of. But yeah, that's how you plot support and resistance and supply and demand. They are two different things, but lots of times when a support and resistance align with a supply or demand level, that adds just extra confirmation to a possible rejection at that zone. So something to note. So basically you just want to put all the odds in your favor. So the more things that line up with your trade thesis, the better. All right. You guys can ask me any questions in the Discord too if you want. But I hope that helps. And yeah, let's make some money. See you guys.